Welcome to the Dusty Jobs podcast from Imperial Systems. Industry knowledge to make your job easier and safer.
Thanks again for joining us, and welcome to another Dusty Jobs podcast. We're excited. We have a couple guests today. We got Russ, Ryland, our head service tech, and Jeremiah Wann, our owner of our company. How you doing, Jeremiah?
I'm doing well. Thanks.
Did you have anything you want to say about this podcast?
No, we were just talking earlier that this is our first multi-person podcast, so it's hopefully it'll be a little bit more enjoyable and relaxed today. Because when I do it, I'm usually uptight and super nervous, so I'm going for just fun today. So we'll see what happens.
More than just me talking too. So we'll be here. Yep. And Russ, how are you feeling today?
Doing good.
You doing good? I know Russ would prefer climbing in a machine and fixing it probably than being in the office. That's his MO. That's he's always out in the field, always traveling, helping people out. We really appreciate that here. Wealth of knowledge, wealth of I'll quit talking about you. Why don't you tell me about yourself, Russ? How long have you been doing this kind of work?
Well, I've been working for Imperial Systems for about 17 and a half years now. Held many positions throughout the company and just worked up to running our service department and taking care of our customers.
Now, you got to tell this story because I think it's great. Tell us how you got started with Imperial Systems.
Well, I was going to school at night for mechanical engineering technology and working at CCX at the time. And they made some changes that was going to interfere with my school schedule. Yeah. So I called Jeremiah up on my lunch break and told him that he's going to hire me and I'm going to start in about 2 weeks.
So that's his version of it.
What's your version? Let's hear your version. What's your version of how Russ came on?
Yeah, I don't remember the phone call. I don't remember that. I just remember sitting around a campfire.
Did he just show up one day?
Kind of. No, I just remember that was in 2002, maybe
2003.
Three? Okay, and so you gotta put it in context. I had a 3rd bedroom office in my house.
Yeah.
No customers. Yeah. And couldn't pay my own mortgage basically, and we had, I think, about 2 guys in the shop, including myself. So I'd go in the midnight shift and work, after I get done selling all day. And then Russ and I were, just hanging out all the time. We just did everything together. And so we were at my cousin's bonfire one night, which is a Western Pennsylvania thing. If you're not, familiar with that, pretty common around here. Or at our age, it was common. I don't do it too much anymore.
Yeah.
But he, one night we were just kind of sitting around the bonfire, and he says, "Quit my job. When am I starting?" Yeah. And I'm like, "What?" And so I said, "Of course you're starting, but I don't know how I'm going to pay you,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But real quick on that though, he came to work for me, and a few months later, we laid him off and pretty much everybody else because we didn't have any work at the moment.
Right.
And so I was over at his house, and his mom comes out and says something about, "Well, Russ made more money on unemployment than he did working for you." Thanks, Miss Ryland. Yeah. So, but that's my version of it.
Well, I know this from being able to interact with Russ and have him close by and being able to pick up the phone. I am glad he came back after unemployment and stuck it out because, man, he's just such a valuable resource we have here with his knowledge because, man, Russ, you've been not only working on our collectors, but you've been in how many different types of collectors you think you've worked on over the years?
Just about every brand you can imagine. I mean, I've been in some from the 50s.
Yeah.
So, about every brand you can imagine, every style of collector out there at some point in time I've dealt with.
Yeah.
So, whether we're just trying to help a customer repair what they have existing or just evaluate and see if it's even practical to fix on some of them.
And I think some people don't know that. And when they think of Imperial Systems or they think of, what we do here, they think we just build dust collectors. And we're more than that. Man, we do full system work, full system design. Even if you get that machine out there and you need someone to come help you just turn it on and start out. I mean, Russ is the guy who would be there. Or Connor, we had a team of people who can go out and help do that. And that's why we have him on today to just help bring more knowledge to that we're not just building collectors and putting them out there. We're full service, full everything here. And the other thing is we're gonna give a little free advice today too. We're gonna give a little free knowledge out there. We're gonna let Russ maybe handle a couple of those phone calls he gets 100 times and just put it out here now so people can listen. So we're gonna dive into a couple issues. So I was thinking issue number 1, Russ, fire. A lot of people have dust collector fires. So what do you see when you normally show up at a dust collector fire? What's the main cause of that? Do you see a lot of the times?
Sometimes it's hard to pinpoint. Usually it's some type of spark got in the system or something hot, depending on the source, the process that the plant is under. In wood applications, it can be sanders. The belt on a sander breaks and is on fire. I've seen that. In the wood or like metal cutting industries, it's usually sparks from plasma cutting or grinding. Is usually the biggest culprits on those that I've seen. I've seen some. I saw a blast machine where they fed wood into it from the pallet.
I was at that one numerous times.
Just putting the whole thing in there.
Whole pallet with the
my
parts.
goodness.
And it just vaporized the pallet basically.
I can't imagine. So once you arrive on the scene and there's been a fire, what's the first thing you're looking at? What are you evaluating? Obviously, by the time you arrive there, the fire's been out. The collector's cooled down. When you show up, what are you looking at? What are the things you're trying to inspect on that machine to see, really where the damage is? Where do you see most of the damage in those situations?
Well, first you look at the first thing you see is the paint job on the collector. Did it get hot enough to melt all the paint off? If it melted all the paint off, that's telling you that, your seals between all the joints could possibly melted away.
Oh, wow.
So that's first, just the overall condition when you first see the collector. If the paint's fairly intact, then a lot of the gasketing probably survived. And then you just go from there to where you start looking at the tube sheet to see if the filters can seal against it still.
Yeah. Now, does that you're saying in high heat situations, like you get warping in that? Is that what you see?
Can.
Or
Yeah, you can have some warping in the tube sheet from that immense heat.
Right.
Just it all depends on how intense the fire was.
Yeah. So a mild fire, it might just need new filters.
Yes.
So, but at some point you might need a whole new system.
The lift mechanisms, whatever holds the filter in, might be warped. They might be shot.
Yeah.
The door might be warped. We have the ServiceMAXX is a very heavy door, but it's big, and so if it warps, it's going to be it's going to either need to be adjusted or replaced. Yeah. So depending on how hot the fire is, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I know this: the number one way to save your collector is just not to have a fire in it, right?
Yeah.
So Russ has been here for a lot of it, and the other thing we didn't talk about is how Russ helps with our R&D too. He really helps develop products, and I think you and Jeremiah both were pretty, the ones who came up with our spark trap, right? You guys kind of worked on that together and built that.
Before we get into that, I want to go back to the fire. Because one of the important things that people don't realize when they have a fire, nobody's ever prepared for it. Like somebody from the office looks out and there's smoke roaring out of the dust collector, or there's smoke coming back in the plant, or there's from the return air because the filter's on fire. So what do you do? We've seen cases where people have literally went up there and just opened up the door and try to put it out. These can be metal fires that you can't put water on. Right. You might have to put some type of an agent on there or CO2 or something like that to get it knocked out. So you should not try to handle that fire on your own. The best and the safest thing you can do is call the fire department, have the fire department come out and deal with it. Right. And quite frankly, you should have a site assessment done before. So if you're putting in a dust collector, call your fire department and let them know you're putting one in. Go over the plans with them, explain to them what you're doing, what the dust type is, what the sprinkler system looks like in the collector, and then come up with the protocols, because you'll never be prepared for it. Right. I'll share a funny story with you. This is going back 8-9 years. I walked out to the plant and we had a couple guys up on a man lift, a scissor lift, welding on there. Mm-hmm. And the sparks had gotten down, and when they did, they landed, there was some rags on the bottom of the man lift. And so all I saw was a fire on the bottom of the man lift, and I saw two guys on the man lift. So I was like, hey, yelled, hey, and so they saw the fire, and they pointed to the fire extinguisher. I went and grabbed it. And you would think, like, I consider myself, I'm fairly intelligent. I'm not like, I mean, I can kind of take care of myself.
You've had a good amount of life experiences.
I've had a decent life experience. I couldn't figure out how to get that fire extinguisher to work for the life of me. Like, I was in a panic mode.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But because I wasn't prepared for it.
Yeah.
And, and so it's like a dust collector is the same way, only a lot more severe. Like, you need to plan.
And complicated.
Yes. You don't want to, you open the door, now you're introducing oxygen. I mean, and then now you're standing there. And I mean, these people have families they have to go home to at night. So you want to make sure that they're taken care of.
Yeah. Normally the door's up high. It's not like you might be on the
trapped
ladder.
on
You
the
could be on. Yeah.
So you don't want to do that. Just make sure that you get with it's called your AHJ, your authority having jurisdiction, your fire department. Just run through the thing with them, make sure. And that way it's better for us too, because it's less likely that the thing's going to burn so bad where it warps or damages things.
Right.
And when we get there, Russ can literally put new gaskets on and put some filters in, and it's fixed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everybody's safe.
Save everybody money, save everybody downtime, save everybody's life.
Right.
Is what we're looking for.
Or even take it a step further, and before you put the dust collector in, make sure you partner with a good company.
That's true.
Whether it's us or somebody else
that
knows about combustible dust and fire hazards, because you can put a lot of devices in. I mean, you can put CO2 systems in, you can put wet systems in, you can put dry systems in. There's a lot of things you can do. So just, make sure, I just tell like the listeners or the viewers to make sure you just pair with the right company when you put a dust collector in.
Yeah.
So, got off track.
Oh, there's no off track here. But one of the ways you guys have developed to help prevent fires was our spark trap for us. And we've seen that effective in a lot of, not just on our collector, but on a lot of collectors. Right. It's just really great. It's a good piece of equipment. So if you're listening now and you've had a fire or on your plasma table or on your laser table, that's a real simple, low cost, easy to install piece that can help prevent that.
Yeah, grinding, blasting, torch, plasma, laser, anything with metal.
Basically any process that can create a fine dust that could have a spark in the process.
That has some mass to it too, and that's the key. Like, we get a lot of calls. I mean, we got a call from Disney World one time. I remember they wanted to put one on their outdoor smoker. There was a big smoker. Like, it was like an 8-inch diameter, and we said, if it doesn't have some mass to it, like metal dust, it's an impingement type, a torturous device essentially is what it is. And so that ember's got a shield of fire around it, and so it has to actually hit something and knock itself out. So if you think about like if you ever get a grinding dust, or if you're welding and you get a berry, they call it, and it gets on you, that's a pretty heavy molten piece of steel,
right? And
it has enough mass to knock itself out. But if you think about, like, if you're doing buffing for like firearms, let's say, and you cotton with a rouge and you have those burning embers of cotton, it won't put that out.
No.
And we've seen that before. People misapply them. So it's just important to make sure.
Just call us. We'll help you figure it out.
We can do that.
And if that's not the solution, we have other ones.
That's right.
Yeah. So, okay. So I feel like we did a pretty good job on fire there.
I think we did.
Yeah. So let's move on to, let's think here. How about, do you ever show up to a collector and it is just packed full of material? You ever have that experience, Russ?
Not our collectors. No.
I have seen a few out there. People don't inspect their dumping hopper that they're filling, the drum underneath, or screw conveyor plug up or something like that.
Yeah.
And just completely fill them to the top of the filters.
You've just got that call. Hey, Russ, the collector's not. And you open the door and it's like someone stacked their locker, huh? Just everything comes piling out.
I have a funny story about that. So I know Russ has probably got a couple, but when you're either the salesman or the service guy and you pull up to a customer you haven't seen in a while, or you're just coming to say hi, the last thing you want to see is that customer at the dust collector trying to shovel it out, right? Oh yeah. Because you know what that means? You're getting dirty.
Yeah.
You're getting dirty. Like you're going to spend the rest of the day helping them clean out that collector.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not necessarily the design or the application. It's just maybe an upset condition, right?
Yes.
I mean, there's things that can happen. But I pulled up to one. It was a grain project, and I pulled up to the collector. We had like 8 or 9 collectors on this job, and I go up and there's a guy going up with a skid steer to the dust collector to the bottom of a bag house, a BRF. And so I'm kind of getting my hard hat out. I'm kind of doing some stuff, and he's pulled up, and all of a sudden I look back up, and there's no skid steer there anymore. There's no guy, there's no skid steer or whatever. He had opened the hatch on the grain bin.
Yeah.
And it completely just
buried him.
Covered him.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, like to the point where he was, because I know that's kind of not funny in the industry, because I know there's been some like ingrained silos, some serious deaths. There's been deaths and accidents, but this was on the ground, and it was just this one could have been bad, but it was just semi-funny because the guy was just like kind of completely covered with grain.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, this is going to be a long day, so helping him get out. But it happens in our business, doesn't it?
I remember when that one happened too.
Yeah.
Russ, how about you? Do you have any experiences like that? Have you ever showed up to a collector and you're like, man, this is just...
Yeah, I mean, I had a plastic application where show up, they're having some issues with bridging over the airlock, and just completely filled the collector.
Oh man.
Usually it's lack of inspections and lack of checking on the discharge device.
Okay, so if we have somebody out there listening and they're like, man, that happens to us all the time. What are the things you could start to look for or notice? You're saying, one, you said an airlock. An airlock could bridge over. Mm-hmm. And now what would cause that? What would cause something like an airlock to bridge over?
Well, one of the scenarios could be overfilling the discharge hopper underneath it, and just allows it to back up through there.
Okay.
Then the simplest thing is just check the discharge hopper more frequently.
Right. Exactly.
Other things can be just a large object bridged across, settled on it, run the collector without the airlocks running for an extended period of time, and then turn them on, and just the dust formed into a cake above it.
Right.
Those are some of the more common scenarios whenever you've run across that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. I can remember a couple pictures I've seen of this where the collector, you have the 3 sides of the hopper, and they look all real nice and shiny. The other one looks like a steel drum from somebody just banging on it because it's been bridging, and that's the only way. And
you don't want to see that. That's not
that's not the correct service plan.
No. Customer needs some help.
Yeah.
And you don't want to see that when that's your collector and you've installed that.
Right.
You don't mind seeing that when you're going on a sales call to look at a new collector. You go, oh yeah, but no, it's one thing though to talk about it with that is that there are people that have plug ups, and so one of the things that we see a lot, and Russ and I have dealt with this numerous times, is that you get it all cleaned out, you put the cover back on, you turn the airlock on, you get the fan running, and they think they're fine, and then 3 hours later they call back or they're plugged up again.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand it. What was it? I even found in this case, I found a 2x4 that was covering the airlock or something. Doesn't make sense. Well, what it is, if you get a really bad plug and you're up in between the filters and you're just jammed up, it's really, really important to go in there and to either take the cartridges out or to take the bags out and literally take a stick down or inspect in there to make sure that all that's cleared out. And
right.
It's a big job.
Yeah. Because
the easier thing would be just to turn it back on and go. But you can cause yourself a lot of grief by not cleaning that out, because if you get a football-sized plug come down,
right,
now you're plugged again. And I don't know how many times we've gotten that call and they said, we even found the board that plugged it. What caused it the second time?
Right.
Well, did you clean it out good? Yeah, we cleaned it out pretty good. No, I mean, did you clean it out really good? Because that little ball of dust can be hanging up in there and cause you a lot of problems. So.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about this a lot here. How our style collector is a horizontal or a vertical style collector, and we have a large door that makes it easy to access to check all that. But there are other collectors out there that could be having that problem because they have a horizontal style collector, and that just allows more bridging.
Right.
in between those filters.
That's interesting. I talked to one of our reps. He's been with us several years now, but he came from a leading competitor that makes a horizontal style cartridge. And he said, when we looked at our unit, we opened the door up and you could see right down in the hopper. You got this big opening about the size of this table, and you can look right down in the hopper. He said, that is just amazing. I said, what do you mean? I mean, I'm so used to seeing this. What are you talking about? He says, no, he said, you can actually access the hopper if you have to. I still didn't get it. What do you mean? He said, well, the other ones were all these little holes that were all about this size that there's no way to get down into that hopper to clean that out if it ever does bridge. So then I was like, I never dealt with that before, so I never really noticed it. But you're absolutely right. Having that access is huge.
Yeah. And at this table, I am for sure the rookie. So, I mean, this is a lot of stuff I've learned, and I've learned a lot from you and from Russ. And
you're not a rookie anymore.
I'm getting
you're getting there.
So,
we got to get him cleaning out a couple of dust collectors. Or maybe you have.
Well, I've been on a couple.
We did take
Russ.
him on a filter change project on a collector that.
I'm still hearing about that. Actually, I still hear grumbling about that. So I forgot. Yeah.
That was a long day. That was a rough day.
It was. It was a learning experience. We'll leave it at that.
It was not our style of collector. So the filters were ovals, bags. They were just. It was a.
And that was a fire. That was a fire.
It was from an aftermath of a fire.
And it makes it tough because
good learning experience.
Because it burned the bags off. They fell down into the collector, so it wasn't. It was a complicated process, but we were there to support the customer and help them get it done. And like you said, I'm not normally doing that, but when we need service done, we're all on board here at Imperial. So
you're so good at what you do now and your podcast that we would never do that to you again.
I'd be glad to go help with Russ and do the service. So now, Russ, so we talked about what are some of the issues that could happen, what are happening with this bridging material style. Does that often lend to bridging, different material styles? Like
some materials are more prone to bridging. You get into some of the longer, stringier type materials that cling together. Some materials just naturally want to cling to itself.
Right.
Any kind of moisture presence can enhance that.
Yep.
Those types of materials. Yes, you will see it's more apt to bridge than some of the fine loose dusts. Anything that likes to clump is going to tendency to want to bridge.
Right. So if you're getting, that's another area people aren't thinking to look for. If you're getting moisture into your system somehow, that's causing you to bridge too, huh?
Yes.
It can. So that's just a simple issue. Now, I know, and I don't know if I'm describing this right, but you got so tired of having to deal with this issue over and over again that you came up with you were kind of the spearhead on coming up with this dust level sensor we have now, right?
With our drum kits, kept coming across a lot of pretty frequently that people would fail to check the drums and empty them in a timely manner and create backups through into the collector. And so we sat back and looked at some options, and I kind of spearheaded it. We decided to do a drum dust level sensor. Yeah. And it's a sensor that ultrasonically measures dust in the barrel, and it can be used in any collector, any container that you can shoot down from the top.
Yeah, you just drill a hole in, and then it sends a sound wave down. Is that right? Am I describing this well?
It sends a sound wave, and whenever it bounces off the material within the specified range of the sensor, it triggers a fault and sends an alert. We have outputs where we can just turn on a stack light, turn on a horn or something, or shut the collector down. Yeah, depending on what level you want to go with that. But
now I know there's other styles of monitoring devices out there, and I know one's like a wire that kind of goes down in that can hang off the lid, and one's a paddle, and I know I've talked to customers that they've had the wire one that goes down in, and they're not being real careful when they're removing that, and they're snapping it right off.
Yep, and you have that in the paddle wheel. Is very hard to get the lid off the drum whenever it's attached to a pretty rigid flex hose. All those other types of sensors seem to be pretty cumbersome and hard to work with. That's why we wanted to go with something that was very small and it doesn't create another hassle.
Yeah, I mean, it's only sticking like a quarter inch. That sensor's only sticking like a quarter inch out the other side of the barrel.
Inside the drum.
It's like the size of a magic marker. I mean,
Yeah.
half of that. It's just small, and it's about the weight of a magic marker.
Yeah, most of
it's
it's
super
out
light.
the top, not down into the barrel.
Yeah.
So, and it's pretty sturdy too.
Yeah.
I mean, so
it's a heavy duty sensor.
Yeah. So, like I said, Russ is one of our R&D guys because he is out there seeing what the problems are and going, there has to be a way we can make this better. There has to be a way we can try to solve this problem so I don't have to get on an airplane from Pennsylvania to California to let somebody know that they have a 2x4 stuck in their hopper, right?
Yeah.
Or that they're just letting their barrel fill up too much. So, but we're glad to do that if that's what's needed.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to circle back around to this. I've listened to both of you, and the one thing I hear over and over and over again is the number one thing you can do for service your collector is take care of it before you need the service. Preventative maintenance seems to be one of the big things that could probably help solve a lot of issues, right?
Yes, it can.
So I want to hear Russ's top 3 things that people can do for preventative maintenance on their collector. If you said these are the 3 things, if you're not going to do anything else, do these 3 things to help make sure your collector is running good regularly. What could be the 3 biggest things?
Well, monitor your differential pressure regularly. That knowing the history of your differential pressure tells you the condition of the filters. It gives you a trend to follow. So if you have a sudden change, say you've been running at 1 inch of water column,
right,
and then the next day you're running at 10. Okay, there is some type of upset condition that happened, and that can help us pinpoint that
now,
kind of thing.
Before we get too deep into this, in case anybody doesn't know, what is differential pressure?
Differential pressure is a measurement of resistance of airflow across the filters. So we take the pressure before the filters and after the filters, and that difference in pressure is the amount of resistance the filters are applying to the airstream.
So how much is in the dirty side of the collector and how much is in the clean side of the collector? The pressure difference, right?
Yes.
Am I explaining that well?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's basically the difference between those 2 pressures is differential pressure.
Right.
And it's a resistance across the filters.
Yeah.
Whatever the filters are imposing as resistance.
Yeah.
So that's monitoring that and being aware of that is one big thing. Maintaining your pulse valves. I have literally opened up a pulse valve, the diaphragm valve, and seeing springs broken inside the valve. So the manufacturers do have maintenance intervals recommended. Typically on our collectors, we recommend every 2 years rebuilding.
So you're saying if the spring's broken, it's probably not cleaning your filters, right?
Yeah, it's not as effectively cleaning them. Those diaphragms
It's
over
a
time.
10-cent spring.
That's
Hundreds of dollars for the filters. Yeah, change
So-
them.
Well, and not only that, so your filters get clogged, your differential pressure goes up, you have a 10-cent spring that could cause your whole system to go down.
Right.
We're talking, you could have guys you're paying $20 an hour sitting around over a 10-cent spring.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, hey, sorry, keep going. Didn't mean to interrupt you there.
Compressed air pressure. Have the correct pressure for your collector. Usually I've seen if you run too light of a compressed air pressure, you can not effectively clean the filters. And if you go too high on your compressed air pressure, you can damage a filter, put a hole in it.
Yeah.
So it's very important to get that clean, dry compressed air too.
Now, is there, I know for our machine, we have a recommended one. Is that pretty universal across all machines, or can that vary from machine to machine?
Some manufacturers have some slight variances from what we recommend, but they're all pretty close.
Gotcha. So what would be that optimal number for your pressure if you had to say that you want to be within this range?
Between 80 and 90 psi.
80 and 90 psi, and that's heading to your tank, and then that's where it should be, right?
Yep.
Well, I know I've heard you say this a bunch of times too, because I've sat in on calls. You got to make sure that air is dry.
Yes.
right? Because that can cause some issues too.
Yeah, if you have moisture in your compressed air, that air is being blown directly on the filters. So water, any kind of moisture or oil in that compressed air will go directly on the filters, and that will can cause all kinds of filter problems.
Which will make your differential pressure go up.
Yeah.
So your point number one is really a key indicator. If you're going to do anything on that machine, it sounds like you should really be, I don't know, checking that every day.
Log your data.
Yeah.
Log your
Log
data.
your
They make data loggers too. You can buy.
Yeah.
How much are they? They're pretty inexpensive.
Some of the real basic ones are probably about $80.
Yeah.
Then you got more advanced systems you can get, pretty crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, quite honestly, sometimes OSHA requires it.
Yeah.
DEP might require it. So in your particular case, you got to check and see if you have to do it. But
I've seen the very the $2 version of a pad and a number 2 pencil
It works
too, that
too.
you
Yes,
can
it
put
works
right
too.
there
Yeah.
and buy it.
No, you can do it that way.
Yeah.
The
Put a
other
clipboard
thing-
on the right by the control panel and
Yeah.
just write it down.
Right.
Yeah. The other thing that wasn't mentioned because he covered so much, but the one thing I was thinking of is it's important to keep your hopper clean from dust.
Yeah.
So we were talking about the level indicator before. That's important because if that dust starts to fill up in that hopper and you're constantly running a full hopper,
Yeah.
you're going to re-entrain that dust back on your filters and drastically shorten your filter life. So you want to make sure that's empty. A lot of people, their indicator for knowing when it's time to change the drum is whenever the dust collector starts to spike in their delta P or their pressure drop.
Yeah.
So that's not a good thing.
No.
And it's a lot easier if you just clean it out, depending on what size. If you have some people have a 20-gallon drum, some people 55, or there might be semi trucks we've done where you're loading out. So whatever your device is,
Self-dumping hoppers. or
yeah,
something,
just make
whatever.
sure that there's a regular PM on it and that it's cleaned out regularly.
Yeah, and I was just talking to someone the other day about they have a plasma machine and they're running 2 10-hour shifts on it, and so that's what's happening to them. They keep getting back up, and I don't know if you've ever dealt with plasma dust, but if it gets if it gets on the floor, it's just a mess.
It's like liquid.
It is.
It's like liquid,
so it is not a fun one to clean up if you have to do that. And
It stains your hands.
Yeah,
it
it's-
kind of gets in your skin. And
Yeah.
It's a mess.
Been around that. We both been around that a lot.
No
so.
one wants to be pulling that drum out and just watch it go all over the floor. That's not ideal. So, but all right. Well, I mean, Russ, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. You have a wealth of knowledge. Jeremiah, thanks for coming on too, being our first, multi-person podcast.
Our podcast is growing.
It's
Yeah.
growing. Yeah. Really appreciate that. Russ, is there any other tips out there that you would like to leave anybody with other than monitor your differential pressure? I've learned that one.
Yeah. No, those are, when you're setting up a collector, it's important for filter life and startup, get the airflow right, because that will set the stage for lifespan of your filters.
It's a great point. These aren't just machines that you turn on and they're ready to go. You got to tune them in a little bit.
I want to plug something though.
Go for it.
Yeah, so I think that we have a service that does this, right? So
Right.
What is the service? Tell us about the
well,
service.
Russ is the head of our ServiceMAXX team.
Okay.
Just like everything else here, it's the Max. And Russ, they can do startups, they can do service calls, troubleshoot. Russ is normally really good about being available on the phone. And anymore these days, a lot of people need a full report on what they have in their facility for either their insurance companies or their jurisdictions that they need to have that. And we can report that. We make very nice reports for that. And we just have a wealth of knowledge and ability. If you're interested in that or you have an issue or need something, call in. There's a lot of people here. We'll get you in touch. We'll get you on the schedule. So that's us here. And it's not just for Imperial collectors. We can help. Like
We'll
Russ said,
service
he's been
any
on
brand collector out there.
anybody's collector out there. Yeah, we're glad to. We just want to help you out.
Yep,
We just want to make sure you have a clean, safe environment for your workers, and we want everybody to go home healthy at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
So, that's what we're trying to do here. So, if you've learned something today or you've enjoyed this podcast, I hope you like us, subscribe. We're on all the podcast channels. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. We're on everything, all social media. I just want to say one more time, thanks, Jeremiah, for coming on.
You bet. Thank you.
Thanks, Russ, for coming on. And everybody who's out there listening, stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you, Don.
Thanks.
Thanks, Russ.
Thanks for listening to the Dusty Jobs podcast. Breathe better, work safer.